'Cause nothing else ever matters. Yeah. Enjoy the video, guys. Chronomancer Prime was the first Chronomancer to be released inside AQWorlds. The complexity on this class is relatively simple. You spam your rifts and you nuke. You also have a dodge reduction on your mob, and then you also have a heal. The damage wise on what this class can do is relatively mediocre. The speed on this class is relatively good. It's quite fast due to its low cooldowns, and the survivability on this class is also good since it has a heal based on its rifts. There's only one downside to that it can be one shot due to harder hitting bosses. The support, like I said, is also mediocre. It has a reduction on the dodge, which makes the class more consistent when you farm in groups. I would recommend you buying this class with the ACs since it has a lot of consistency, since this nuke has a higher chance to crit, and this class has lower cooldowns too. But overall, a nice class to have, and I will put this class at A tier. Chrono Chaorruptor was the second class to be released inside AQWorlds as a Chronomancer. It is a relatively fun class to use due to its RNG aspects, but due to its RNG aspects of the class, that's the most drawback on the class, and due to the drawbacks, I wouldn't recommend it to buy it. Okay, that being said, the class is relatively simple to use, just keep in mind with the RNG aspects. The damage on this class can be higher than the previous year's class due to its 5, which is bonus 75% damage increase. But bear in mind, keep a reminder on which effect is applied. The speed on the class is relatively good due to its 5, which gives haste. The survivability is also somewhat decent, which can help when you're farming bosses. And it also has an RNG, which can be a big heal or a small heal. But also bear in mind the durations on that too. The support, there's no support on this class. Honestly, there's no support at all. Again, my verdict, I wouldn't recommend you buying this class. It's probably like a collector's type of class, but honestly, due to its RNG aspect, it makes the class very unpredictable. You're a superhero. TimeKeeper is the third class that was released inside AQWorlds as a Chronomancer. Thus being said, it's probably the best class to use if you're fighting hard hitting bosses, since you can abuse the dodge mechanic on the class. The complexity on this class is quite simple. There's no brain thought process happening, just remember to keep up your third ability with keep on nuking those bosses, and also remember to keep your second ability up as much as possible. The damage is quite mediocre. It doesn't have the higher crit chance as for its predecessor, as for the Chronomancer Prime. The speed on this class is quite good. It's also comparable to Chronomancer Prime since its speed is at max haste, and it also gets an additional rift on its survivability. The survivability on this class is where it shines the most. It can be used on most bosses except for if they have a 100% hit chance, which is probably like ultras and other certain bosses. But overall, this class is relatively fun to use, and the support it gives is just reducing some haste and a stun. Thus being said, like I said, the class is really good, and use them and you're probably going to be all good set and good solo class to use. Remember to use potions, and it'll probably be the best ACs you'll be using ever.
Over the edge, feel like I'm floating through the air. The pain I felt is paid for, all is said and done. Oh.
Chrono Commandant is the fourth class to be released inside AQWorlds as a Chronomancer. The class is based on a tank version as Chrono Prime. Thus being said, the class is relatively simple to use, the damage is mediocre, the speed is not as great as the other predecessors on the previous year's Chronomancers, since no ability gives it haste, but it also shines for the nuke since it has a lower cooldown compared to other classes. The survivability is where it shines. It has a lot of HP, it has a lot of damage reduction, and the heal basically heals you at full at most times. The class also has a fifth ability which reduces damage as well. Support on this class is also somewhat decent since you are able to taunt and reduce damage on the target you hit with your fifth ability. This class is mostly focused on taunting and tanking while nuking the mob. It has a low cooldown, like I said, on its nuke ability, and it stacks its root relatively quick. Chrono DataKnight is the fifth class to be released as a Chronomancer in AQWorlds. The class is relatively fun to use, but is a glass cannon with no heal and quite slow. The class complex ability is relatively simple, just spam your 2 and your nuke. The damage is where it shines, it's a hard hitting class, and the speed on this class is quite bad. There's no haste, and the nuke on this class is quite a long cooldown as well. Survivability is also a joke on this class since it has no heal, but it has a damage reduction on its third ability. But surprisingly, support it actually has somewhat support since it actually increased the damage taken for the target hit by its fourth ability, and it increases spell damage. Not all damage, so it can do increased damage for other classes as well. Overall, this class is quite fun and it's quite decent inside groups, but I wouldn't recommend if you want to do solo because you are just going to die quite a bit. Interstellar Knight is the 6th class to be released as a Chronomancer in AQWorlds. The class is really bad. Honestly, it's really bad. Don't buy it, don't waste your ACs, don't waste your hero points, honestly. The complexity on the class is really simple, just spamming abilities. You won't get much actually. The damage is really mediocre to extremely bad. Your nuke is like basically a dot that does it 3 times, and I tried it on my ult and it's like I was able to get to up to 100k, and it was consistently 100k. It wasn't going higher or lower. And also you don't nuke on your nuke. The speed is actually somewhat decent, honestly. And also remember, the class also stacks its rifts to 6 compared to other classes where it stacks to 4. The survivability is also somewhat decent, and honestly I wouldn't honestly. Okay, support on this class, okay, it does have good dodge reducing on its auto attacks, but the RNG on its 5, okay, either do you want to reduce your target's haste and reduce your dodge capabilities, or do you want to have no rifts and use your first and increase the haste and the dodge capabilities damage on your target? So what do you want to do? I would say it's quite bad. That's why I don't have the class, and I use it on my ult. Honestly, it's pretty shit.
Burning the bridge that keeps us. I'm here and I'm feeling fearless. Exaggerated, that's what you assume. The story's over now, I must conclude. I am conflicted, watching where I step still, hanging in the balance, not the life I want to live. I want to take it all, standing tall.
Shadow Stalker or Shadow Walker or ShadowWeaver, or however you want to say it, is the 7th class to be released as a Chronomancer in AQWorlds. The class is really complex to be used and really hard to pull off if you did not practice this class enough. This class is a dodge taunter and a dot nuker. Thus being said, the complexity on this class, you have to have a lot of practice to get to know the class and what it can do. The damage is S tier, and the first class after the other 6 classes before its predecessors to be released, is quite decent in its damage. The speed on this class is really good. There's only one downside, that if you do not have a good internet connection, do not use this class, because you will be smashing your keyboard, since the 5th ability will basically say, no, you're not going to use it. Anyways, the haste can be run out very easily if you're not careful. The survivability on this class is really good. It has a high dodge and has healing on its second ability. It is a HST. It also has some sustain with its 4th ability with the mana regain. Support on this class is actually surprisingly good. It reduces haste or dodge depending on your first ability if it's active or not. It also increases damage based on the target if your first ability is not active. It also applies focus, and while your first ability is active, it also reduces hit chance on your mobs attacked. This class can be used as a farming class as well. It has AoE, and I'm telling you, this class, it's really good. But practice, and choose. Don't listen to Corey when it comes to this class, because when we watch the video,
Fear outweighed the person you are. Oh, break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of
Empyrean Eternal or Immortal Chronomancer is the 8th in Chronomancer, has been released inside AQWorlds. It's probably the most unique Chrono classes because it's really like you have to spam like 2-5 the whole time to just focus out of deadlock switching. It's really simple class, but you still have to pay attention to that. But honestly, I digress. The complexity is really simple. There's not much to it. It's just spam 2-5. Then once you're out of deadlock and into infinity form, then you're able to spam 3 and 4. Damage is S tier. It does a lot of damage because it's like rift upon rifts. Speed is taking like you take too long. If you have your good keyboard and you have this class, I wouldn't recommend it. Survivability, it has a really good healing. It's a delay healing because you have to get out of deadlock form to able to use your healing. And support, there's no support inside this class at all. Anyways, the class is really good, don't get me wrong. It was one of the 2 classes you're able to buy before they re-released all the Chronomancers inside Hero Mods. So it was Shadowstalker and the Immortal Chronomancer, which I have. I used this class a lot before they released it, and I will say using this class, it gave me some exercise on my finger, to say the least. But overall, it does really good damage, but it's just, in my opinion, it just takes too long. Timeless Chronomancer is probably one of the most unique classes that have been released as a 9th Chronomancer in AQWorlds because it uses the hourglass mechanic. And there are 6 hourglasses, but I use 2. The hourglass of Transcience and Infinite Corruption. I use these 2 because you do a lot of damage. You live on an edge, and I like this. It does a lot of damage and it's quite consistent. There are like other builds we're able to be more a tank, higher speed and all that stuff. But this class, it's really fun. Okay, since this class is really fun, the complexity is quite high, but not as bad as Shadowstalker. The complexity comes in trying to manage your hourglasses and not dying. The damage is quite rewarding because the setup I have is high risk, high reward. I use the Infinite Corruption, which basically makes me very susceptible to dying a lot. So don't use Vainglory because that dot is gonna hurt. Okay, the speed is really fast. You just keep on spamming your 4 and your 3, then you're able to keep your loop up very quickly. Survivability is quite high if you're able to keep your nuke up and your 4 and your 3. And support, there are some hourglasses you're able to have support. There's focus and there's decay. surprisingly. When I saw Decay, I was like, wait, what? Anyways, Timeless Chronomancer is a really unique class. It does a lot of damage, is really rewarding, and the combo is not that hard. Just don't panic when you use this class. If you panic, don't use this class. Overworld Chronomancer is similar to Timeless Chronomancer, almost the same, just the hourglasses are slightly different. I do not have the class, and I have no ult that has a class, unfortunately, so will have no footage on the Overworld Chronomancer or Underworld Chronomancer. There are fairly differences, but the skill set is identical. So yes, just saying. Necrotic Chronomancer is the 11th class that has been released inside AQworlds, and the first dedicated Chrono class to be used for farming in AQworlds. The class is really fun and arguably the best farming class inside the game before Archmage became a thing. The class is really decent and recently it got a buff. Okay, the complexity on this class is not that high. Just be wary of your 2, because if you spam your 2 the whole time, your dot will eventually kill you. But other than that, just focus on your HP. Farming, it's really good. Just keep on spamming your buttons. Every time your Rift gets max to 4, then you nuke. The speed is really fast. It's really consistent. Just keep on spamming your 3. Your 3 is your haste. And survivability. It's really good. It does a lot of debuffs, and there's no resistance on the class except for the one passive. But if you manage to have a lot of deductions, and you're able to keep the class going. Support, surprisingly this class has really good support capabilities. Hit chance, dodge and crit chance reductions on the enemies will actually allow a lot of ease for your teammates, but this is a farming class. You won't be using this class with teammates or bosses and stuff like that. Okay, I digress. This class is a farming class. Is it worth 6k ACs? Before Archmage became a thing, then yes, it was worth it. But if you want to have some fun and you have some AC spare, go get the class. It's pleasing to look at because it's a Shadow Scythe theme. So Gravelin, the simps. I'm sorry, but honestly, the class is fun. Really decent after the new buff. Yes, this is a farming class. Quantum Chronomancer is the 12th class to be released inside AQworlds as a Chronomancer, and is the first Chronomancer that is a dedicated support. That being said, the class is extremely good. The complexity on this class is quite simple. Your rift is on your auto attacks, so just pay attention to that. The damage on this class is quite high, since its third ability is a modifier on for your nuke, for the crits. And that being said, with the modifier, you have to have keep on spamming or pre-buffing your spell for your class to do a lot more damage. So having more people inside the room will allow you to do more damage. So it's very conditioned. But if you're doing it in ultras and stuff like that, the class damage is very mediocre. It's comparable to Chronomancer Prime, but it's a support chrono. The speed on this class is quite mediocre. There's no haste on this class, but due to the rift speed on its auto attacks, it can go really fast due to that. The survivability on this class has no healing, but it has reductions on its spells. It can give defense and dodge on its third and fourth abilities. Then support. Where do I begin where this class is good? It reduces defense, dodge, it gives damage, it gives crit damage, it gives crit chance, it gives defense, it gives dodge, it reduces dodge, and it's just never ending. But overall, this class, I don't know, this class is really something unique. It can be used with other chronos, where other chronos normally don't work well with each other. This class can be used in many forms, in different places, and I don't see why people should not buy it. I would recommend it, in the levels of getting Chronomancer Prime and TK and Timeless Chronomancer, it's in between that category. This class, I would put it triple S, but triple S doesn't really exist. It's S tier, really S tier. Okay, so the verdict is Chrono Chaorruptor is decent, but is it worth it to buy it? Not really. Chrono Commandant, is it worth it? Not really. But if you want to do something else, it is a better option. Chrono DataKnight, is it worth it? Not really. Chronomancer Prime, is it worth it? Yes, definitely. It's real fast, it's really good, and it's just, it's just really good, man, honestly. Immortal Chronomancer, is it good? Not really. Necrotic Chronomancer, is it good? Yes. A really good farming class, a solid one. It was a lot of fun. Better than Legion Revenant, and it was the best before Archmage became the god tier. Quantum Chronomancer, is it good? 100%. Any support in this game is 100% the best, the best, the best. No doubt. Okay. Yes, buy it. Timeless Chronomancer, is it worth it? Yes, if you know how to use this class, the high risk, high reward will be really good. Okay, let me just go to Shadow Stalker. Ooh, if I can now, it's for Shadow Stalker. Shadow Stalker, is it worth it? Yes. It's a really nice class, it's really fun. There's a lot of combos you can do with it. Not as much as Timeless Chronomancer, but This class is really fun to use. It's really solid, it's really versatile, and is somewhat decent. What's next? Timekeeper. Okay, is it worth it? Yes, it's 100% worth it. It does better what Chronomancer Prime can't do. So, whatever Chronomancer Prime can't do, Timekeeper can do better. Timekeeper is basically just a dodge version, and yeah, it's just really good. And if I check what's next, I think that's all of it. So, yeah, Interstellar and Overworld, oh, voice crack there. Interstellar, not worth it. Overworld is basically just a duplicate of Timeless. So, if you guys really want it, go Timeless, Interstellar. Don't hurt yourself. Okay. Then lastly, Paladin Chronomancer, the 2023 Chronomancer. I wonder how good it will be. As you guys can see, I have enough ACs for it, and I'll be doing a review once it's out. So stay tuned for that, guys. And I will tell you how good it is. Maybe other YouTubers would say otherwise, but still, trust my word.